So it looks like Russia is making a big problem even worse. New intelligence suggests that Putin is relocating air defense systems from around the country to Moscow. In other words, Putin and the Moscow elite will be better protected at the expense of the soldiers at the front and the overall Russian economy. If this is accurate, it's hard to overstate its significance. I mean, the problem that Russia faces is that every single day, they have to protect a larger area with fewer assets, and not everything can be a priority, which means that quite a few areas are going to become even more vulnerable to Ukrainian strikes. Just yesterday, Ukrainian President Zelensky said, quote, "The Russian leadership is moving more air defense systems to Moscow, Valdai, and to Putin's bridge across the Kerch Strait at the expense of air defense systems in other regions. They have deployed hundreds of launchers for S-400, S-500, and Pantsir systems to the Moscow region alone. They have moved nearly 90 air defense launchers to Valdai from other Russian regions, and a special air defense division is being formed there to ensure the peace of the Russian leadership. For comparison, in all other regions of Russia, there are only a few launchers each. Such are the priorities. They are protecting their own power, protecting the source of this war." End quote. Now, again, that is single source is probably the best way to put it. It's a single statement coming from Ukrainian President Zelensky, but you can also see how this would happen. It's not out of the blue. We have known for a long time, I mean, it's common sense, every country has a limited number of systems. Air defense are expensive. There's only so many of them, and we have seen every single day Ukraine taking out more and more of those. So, bottom line up front, Russia has more territory that needs to be protected as Ukraine has expanded their drone campaign to further and further depths inside of Russia. But at the same time, they are losing systems to offer that protection. Now, we can see how this move towards Moscow would happen. This is the head of the Russian government. You've got not just the individuals, but the organizations running the entire country there. A lot of the Russian elite are in Moscow. So there, of course, is a desire to want to protect that location. But in doing so, they were leaving the military and their economy incredibly vulnerable. And that's what we're going to look at today. A couple different impacts should this play out that, again, makes sense. You can see how this would happen. On the military side, should air defense assets be moved from all over the country and the occupied territories to Moscow, we're going to see just more targets available at the front. There's already not enough resources to protect everything. Now there's even fewer. Now, you can put any number you want here. Say, we know that air defense protection over the Russian occupied territories is not 100% because every day we have objective footage from Ukraine and Russia confirming that drones and sometimes missiles are getting through. So let's say that there's 90% coverage, which I think is pretty high for what it's worth. If you start moving any system out of there, that number just goes down. It doesn't go up. All right. So if we're seeing a number of strikes, dozens per day, and now there's fewer systems to protect against those strikes, the logical assumption or logical conclusion would be more things are getting ready to go boom in the Russian occupied territories. In fact, what we should be watching here in the coming days and weeks are Russian airfields, logistics, command posts, and headquarters facilities. On the logistics front, expect more strikes against trains, trucks, and refuelers, especially in the south. Now, we're seeing the Russian mill blogger community start to notice this as well, with one just saying yesterday, quote, "Reality can't be hidden. Demoralization and division are already occurring within the army," end quote. But before diving into that, a quick message from a great supporter of this channel, Fabric by Gerber Life. So as we talk about pretty regularly on this channel, sometimes the boring stuff can actually be the most important. And as much fun as it is planning the perfect next family vacation, think about setting aside just a little bit of time to make sure your family is taken care of in the event that something happens to you. The sponsor of today's video is Fabric by Gerber Life. Fabric is term life insurance built for busy parents, all online, no health exam, and you could be covered in as little as 10 minutes. And if you've got kids and are young and healthy, right now is the best time to lock in low rates because generally speaking, the longer you wait, the more expensive it gets. Now we're talking $1 million of coverage for less than $1 a day, and that's not a typo. Think about that real quick. $1 million to your family in the event of your death. Just think of what that could mean for your spouse, for your children, for their future. This is not about you, it's about them. And even if you've got life insurance through work, it might not be enough. And usually it doesn't follow you if you change jobs. There's no risk either. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee. You can cancel anytime. And there's already over 1,900 five-star reviews on Trustpilot. So join the thousands of parents that trust Fabric to help protect their family. Apply today at meetfabric.com/Preston. That's meetfabric.com/Preston. So Russian mill blogger or war correspondent officer at the front said, quote, right now our army is degrading simultaneously in 3 critical areas: fuel, communications and electronic warfare, and logistics. He said the army is turning into a shadow of itself. The army is rotting from within. It's not the equipment, not the numbers, not morale. Everything is collapsing at the organizational level. And that's the level that we're talking about when it comes to moving air defense assets around the battlefield. He says brigades have been inflated into divisions only on paper. This isn't reinforcement. It's a funeral disguised as growth. We're becoming deaf and blind. Tactical communication is a museum exhibit. Electronic warfare is powerless against Ukraine's fiber optic drones. Our own systems interfere with each other. Radar operators don't know what to do. On the Kupiansk, Konstantinivka, and Zaporizhia fronts, drones, communication, transport, everything is procured through volunteers. Centralized supply is dead. On the information front, Moscow is burning in the news. Western media savor the footage. Even our own bloggers are starting to admit that reality cannot be hidden. Demoralization and division are already occurring within the army. End quote. And we've got the military side of this is, of course, clear. When you start moving Pantsir and Buk and any number of systems away from a command post or an airfield or, a military logistics route near the front, of course, that becomes more vulnerable. What's unique right now is that this is not just playing out at the front, but we've got economic impacts to Russia in their deep rear as well. So we are already starting to see fuel shortages spread across Russia. Like a significant number of oblasts have instituted some degree of oil rationing, fuel rationing. There are gas stations being closed down, regular reports of people hoarding fuel, and government officials having to say, don't take more, there's plenty to go around, and then the station is closed the following day. Just earlier today, we got notification of scheduled power outages in Crimea, which means that a lot of those locations would now be dependent on generators, which run on fuel, which is running out across the country. Veteran Notes talked to this, another Russian war correspondent saying, quote, in Crimea, the problem is much harder to solve, and it's unlikely that it will be done quickly because the only option is to build underground facilities for fuel storage, and this takes time and will have to be done under the watchful eye of Ukrainian drones. It is necessary to strengthen the calculations of the Ministry of Defense and Air Defense and to close the entire perimeter of the peninsula. Crimea is the most vulnerable place, and the enemy knows this, which is why he is focused on it intensively. I don't think they should probably expect more air defense assets moving into Crimea. Again, we are seeing every single day new footage released of these systems at least getting damaged, if not completely destroyed by Ukraine, many of them in Crimea. Where are they going to pull them from? Right? So if they're already plussing up around Moscow, which passes the common sense test, I think it's probably going to be a net negative for Russia in this war, but you can see why Putin would want to do that. Where are these systems coming from? Maybe they're going to put more in Crimea, but that's going to come at the direct expense of the operational fight in the occupied territories. Now, a great line here with the refinery starting to get hit more and more. Every single day, there is a new Russian oil refinery on fire. The Deputy Prime Minister Novak attributed this to unscheduled maintenance, which is one way to frame it. He said, quote, current production, talking about oil and fuel, is indeed somewhat lower than it was at the beginning of the year. This is due to the fact that a number of our oil refineries are currently undergoing unscheduled maintenance. We've got some pictures and videos of said unscheduled maintenance, and it appears to be doing a pretty significant job. It looks like, from what we can tell, Ukraine is becoming more effective at taking these Russian refineries offline. Now, there's a couple different reasons for that. One is the quality of the drone. Maybe the camera on the drone able to pick up and see exactly what they're hitting. There were some reports recently we've covered in past videos that Ukraine is leveraging commercial satellite imagery from companies in the United States to be able to provide very detailed battle damage assessments, sometimes within hours of the strike. So if Ukraine is more effective at striking these refineries, we would expect to see the refineries out of commission for a longer period of time, and that is exactly what Reuters reported yesterday. Where they said, quote, Moscow's oil refinery will be offline for at least 6 months after suffering extensive damage in Ukrainian drone attacks, complicating Russian efforts to tackle fuel shortages across the world's largest country. They say the refinery, located on the southern outskirts of the Russian capital, is the largest fuel supplier to the Moscow region. It was hit twice this month by Ukrainian drones, forcing it to halt operations. They said faced with the fuel crunch, Russia is considering a diesel export ban. Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak said on Tuesday. Novak, that's the same guy with the unscheduled maintenance comments, so that's great. They said a newspaper in Russia, meanwhile, reported that fuel imports were being considered to tackle shortages, especially in Crimea, where sales of gasoline to the public have been suspended. So at a high level, Putin is facing a dilemma. There is no good answer here. Well, the good answer is that they could leave Ukraine. I have a feeling that if Russia did that, they probably would stop losing soldiers in assaults at the front. They probably would see power restored to Crimea, and they would probably see a stop of strikes against their oil infrastructure across the country. Unfortunately, that doesn't really seem like it's in the cards right now. So instead, Putin is having to make an impossible decision. There's no good answer here. If they do not reallocate air defense assets, then everything keeps getting hit. That's on a negative trajectory. I mean, that's the situation we're seeing right now, and we're seeing fuel shortages and supply issues near the front. So they're deciding to make a choice here. And it seems like Putin is deciding to protect the Kremlin and the Moscow elite. If he does that, it will come directly and in very short order at the expense of the soldiers at the front, the ongoing military operation in Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, and then the energy infrastructure around the region. We are going to see, should this continue, an increase in fuel shortages across the country, and we'll see which direction that goes, right? It's one thing when fuel is expensive. What happens when it's not there? Because there are a number of locations already across Russia where the citizens cannot access fuel. It's a bit of a spiral that Putin has found himself in right now. It's going to be an interesting next little stretch here. Now, wanted to provide you guys a quick fundraiser update. We just got a note from one of the soldiers that we provided a vehicle to, and I want to read this to you to give you an idea of the impact that you all are making at the front. He said, quote, "We received the vehicle and are incredibly grateful for your help. The Hilux you provided has already made a real difference for our platoon and greatly improved our mobility and logistics. Unfortunately, it has not completely solved the vehicle shortage within our unit, but your support has helped us more than words can express. We are sincerely thankful to you personally and to Car for Ukraine for everything you have done. We hope for continued cooperation in the future and are grateful to have friends like you standing with Ukraine. God bless America, and thank you again." Again, that is a message to you all. What we've been able to do as a community coming together, providing at this point 17 trucks to units fighting in some of the hottest areas of the front. So it's an incredible campaign. I am so grateful to you all to have your trust to make sure we see these campaigns through and the funds are well spent, that it's responsibly spent, and that we get the vehicles in a timely manner where they're needed most. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you all for allowing me to be a part of this with you. It's inspiring to see what so many good people can do when they come together. If interested in learning more about that campaign, that link will be in the description below. That's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.